This is really exciting.
Pumpkin.
I feel like we're rarely on this couch together.
I know.
Usually,
I like never
usually
saw
I'm
it.
studying over here.
She's really gonna make this hard.
It's okay. She's a star. She just
down.
wants a little bit of attention this morning.
Pumpkin is really just going off. Let me get her a toy.
She's just gonna be a little bit of entertainment. It's really fine.
okay.
Hi you guys, welcome to a long overdue video that Scout and I thought of. How long ago?
A year.
She's in medical school, I'm in nursing school, and today we're gonna be comparing the life of a nursing student and the life of a med student. Do you want to share what year you're in?
I guess I'm in my second year. For the last week, I'm in a little deep.
I'm about to graduate. I have 5 weeks left. Oh my gosh. Want a little matcha action? We had to get some caffeine because it's Monday, so we're starting a new week. I asked you guys on Instagram to ask me your questions. You guys asked some good ones, so we're just gonna go back and forth. I feel like there's one question that everyone asked a lot, so let's just start out with, why did you choose medical school?
I thought about it a lot. I first thought that I wanted to do functional medicine, Eastern medicine. I went to China and did the traditional Chinese medicine thing and just found that that was not the capacity that I wanted to help patients in. I also thought about PA school. My biggest thing was that I didn't necessarily want to be doing the direct taking care of patients. And I think it was more of like I want to either do surgery or be diagnosing.
Do you feel like you really like the challenge of you're presented a set of symptoms and you have to then proceed? Do you like that part, like the mystery part of it?
So the funny thing is, no. I don't really love, I don't think diagnostics are my favorite. I think I thought that I would like them more than I do. I don't really think my brain works in that way. I do think that I had a very cognizant feeling that I like control and power. Like, that sounds bad, but
we're gonna be honest here.
I've always known that like whatever I did, I wanted to be able to be high on a chain of command. And I think I would struggle a lot with obviously there's a huge culture between doctors and nurses, and I just think it would make me so angry. So I think I was
I think that's so fair. I'm kind of the opposite, where I did think about med school. I wanted to be a pediatrician since I was 9 years old, and I decided a month before I started my first undergrad degree that I didn't want to go to med school because I felt like my personality was maybe better suited not as high up in the power. The other part of it for me was I didn't want to have 10 more years of school and to get in that much debt, because it is hard. At the end of the day, yes, you will be farther off ahead, even though in the short term, because I'm in less debt.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just different.
I also want to point out that we are not pointing out the obvious of we want to help people. And we want to make meaningful change in our world. And I think for me, I also felt like I could make the most change in our world as a physician, because that is one of the things that drove me into medicine.
And my big thing of okay, why am I gonna choose nursing, was because I was I can still make a difference by being a nurse and being in medicine without having to be a doctor. Every role in the medical field has a purpose, and every single role is giving back to patients. Have you ever regretted being in medical school instead of nursing school?
Ooh, no. I think I was pretty confident by the time that I went into it that it was what I wanted to do, especially as I've found that I definitely want to do surgery. I could not possibly regret going this route over any other route, because it's the only route where I can be doing surgery as much as I want to.
Do you guys feel like there's a competitive vibe in your schools, or is it more collaborative? I think it's fairly collaborative because we work on a lot of group projects, so I would say less competitive than our undergrad. Both of us had the same exact undergrad experience at University of Oregon, so it's kind of interesting to compare the two.
Mine is not at all competitive at all. We don't have grades, we just have pass-fail, so that helps a lot because there's no oh, who's doing better than who, or who's ranked better.
We do have grades, so there's a touch of that still.
Everyone is very collaborative, very willing to share any resources. If anything, we're competitive about who can help people the most. Me and my friend make an anatomy Quizlet, and we're that's our Quizlet, and then other people make Anki decks.
Best Quizlets. Everyone knows.
I feel like that's the only level of competitive that we have, and that's not even like real or toxic.
What is the mix of clinical versus lecture hours each of you has? I have typically like 1 or 2 full days of lecture a week. Most of the time, lecture is required for us to attend in person at my particular school. For clinical hours, it varies throughout the term, but we typically have a full 12-hour day of clinical every single week. And right now that I'm in my senior practicum, that varies because we are going to get 120 hours.
So mine, it's split up multiple ways. The most like overview way is that from August of 2021 until March of 2023, I'll be in the classroom. So for the last year, the most time that I've spent has been in the classroom, but really at home because we don't have required attendance. After March of 2023, until I graduate in roughly March of 2025, I'll be in clinic. But I think medical schools also want to be able to advertise early clinical exposure, so they find a way to build it in pretty early. So for me, that's preceptorship. I have had 2 of them now. I'm about to start another one. I think you're in clinic or surgery for about 4 hours a week. I am allowed to like shadow anyone I want, and people are really receptive to that, so I could have more, but I just don't have time.
Tell them about how you don't go to lecture, like your whole system there.
I do all my school at home. I only go to lecture when I absolutely have to, like if it's literally required. So my schedule typically only requires me to be at school Tuesdays from 1 to 4 p.m. And then other than that, I'm just at home.
But
watch
tell them
lectures.
why, because you work more efficiently. Because don't
Yeah.
you like up the lecture speed?
Yes. Yeah.
And then like how you study it. Tell me if I'm
Yeah.
getting this wrong.
No, you're right.
Scout and I study together all the time, so I feel like I'm like watching her.
I don't really take lecture as like, oh, I have to memorize every single detail. I'm more just like, I need to get through the hours and hours. We typically have about 4 hours of lecture a day. So I try to just get through it. So I'll put it on 2 times speed. I try not to pause. I take notes on the slides on my iPad. And then other than that, I get into more like, okay, like boards and beyond or sketchy or something like that to supplement. Typically, there's so much going on in a week that if I can just get through the lectures and maybe get a little bit of supplemental material, then I end up being okay. But we have tests every single Friday, so you kind of have to stay on top of it.
Right. And nursing school is also fairly similar. Like we typically have a test every single week as well, but for a particular class. In medical school, they're just throwing the details on her and she has to pick out like what's most important to know. For me, they're almost giving me like a little bit of a broad overview, and it's not enough for me to pass the NCLEX with simply the material I've been taught in lecture. Because I'm in an accelerated program, like I have to go out and seek supplemental information from books or YouTube or other things that my teachers just haven't covered. Where it's kind of different for you. Like you're almost overwhelmed with information.
Yeah.
And you pick out what you want out of it.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of answers, someone asked what was the biggest difference in subjects. I think that kind of covers.
Yeah, I also think a key difference to say is that I don't have classes. Kiara has classes. Like she registers for a schedule with classes. They just give us lectures and they're not really like under any certain heading. It's more like, okay, right now I'm in the hormones and digestion block. So our lectures are about hormones and digestion, and that's as like specific as that gets.
I would say scout structure is pretty different from what we experienced in our undergrad, and mine is fairly similar. And yes, that's because I'm getting a second bachelor's degree, so that's part of it. Another question is difference in amount of depth of knowledge on topics such as meds, patho, patient care. I feel like I learned the nursing basics, like the core at the bedside. So safety is really big, infection prevention.
I don't know what the depth that you're being taught is, but I do know that like if I'm studying, sometimes you just like know, she knows far better than I do.
Yeah,
I feel like
we probably, because we had a class dedicated to it, so we know the weird things.
I have more things that I can kind of like let go for now and know like, oh, I'm gonna have to pick this back up when I'm studying for boards. Whereas I feel like you have maybe solidified more of those details.
Just because my program's really fast and I'm like almost done.
Yeah.
This is a really huge difference. The work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because I'm just telling you that Scouts self-motivation is unmatched.
I would say work-life balance in medical school is really hard. I remember when I first started, Kiara was asking me like if I was taking care of myself, and I was like, well, I let myself take the trash out today.
Yeah, that's Scouts like break time is her either taking Pumpkin on a walk or taking the trash out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna go out to dinner. I gotta go play tennis.
Yeah.
I have a job.
I'd say the biggest thing is like I do not do anything from Monday to Friday. Friday morning. If people ask me to do things, I pretty much just have it as a hard and fast rule that it's a no if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
And you're really good about that.
Yeah.
See, I have a really bad habit now of probably saying yes too much because I know it's potentially possible for me to make it happen. I cut into more of my study time.
I think you're as focused as you have to be though.
Yeah.
Really, I'm like a peas get MDs. I am really just shooting for 70% every week, so I really do try to like take care of myself, sort of. Like I recently started like going to the gym again and doing things like that because I think that's probably good.
Yes.
But not making plans Monday through Thursday doesn't mean that I'm not taking breaks. It just means that my breaks are more like laying in my bed for 20 minutes.
When do you start to feel like you know stuff? Fellow med student who feels like they know nothing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And I also agree with that, but I think the times I feel the most dumb is when I'm actually at clinical in the hospital.
I will say that my first preceptorship was in hematologic oncology. I had just done my blood host defense block. I actually knew things, and that was really reassuring.
Yeah.
It was nice to know things were sticking even if I don't feel like they are.
What about when everyone texts you for medical advice? Don't you feel like you kind of know what you're talking about then?
It depends. My brother was texting me his like liver function tests, and I had just learned them. So I was like, okay, I can tell you what these things mean and what this ratio means.
Cool.
But then there's some things where I'm like, I'll just Google it. And then I'm like,
I know how to find the answer on Google.
Yes.
What is something you admire about the other's profession?
this I have a very easy answer to. I had to do a class where you had to like work with people from other professions. Biggest thing that I took away from it was the amount of risk that nurses take on. I just really admire the willingness to do that. Like patient safety is so at the forefront of nursing. A lot of the things that directly end up compromising patient safety do end up in the hands of nurses, and I think that's something that isn't recognized enough. Doctors take on risk, yes, but nurses are taking on risk constantly, and I feel like there's a lot more expectation from patients of they know that the doctor's like not gonna spend a lot of time with them and like not gonna be there a lot. They know they're gonna be late, but I feel like with nurses, people can be really hard on them.
It's the ability to balance so many different patient stories at once and build this path for them and kind of like have this more big picture perspective where we're really focused in the day-to-day nitty-gritty, which can be great because I can inform you of this. Where's your patient at? Like you don't know, but to be able to always have a next step and try something without like a rule book, but for you guys to be this like higher up and say, let's try this, let's be creative. Like there's so much creativity in medicine, more than I think people believe.
For sure.
Starting salary after graduation, maybe we compare our new grad salaries.
I'll go out of medical school and be a resident. What I get paid is just going to depend on what field I go into. Right now, I'm the most interested in urology and plastic surgery. So let's see.
I looked this up this morning, and I'm pretty sure in Oregon, which does pay their nurses decently well, and I went on the lower end, it would be about $75,000 a year pre-taxes.
Yeah, so a urology residency salary is about $62,000 a year. Plastic surgery is 41 to 62, so it's pretty low.
Yeah.
And I think it's also definitely worth pointing out that I will be in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I already am about $100,000 in debt after 1 year.
How much is your program like without cost of living? My program is at a private school and it's a accelerated program in 15 months, and my program costs $100,000. They give pretty much everyone an $18,000 scholarship. That leaves you at $82,000.
Okay, so tuition alone in state at my school, $180,000 by the end, but once you add in living expenses and
like not being able to work, you like cannot have a job during medical school.
Yeah.
I would say a decent amount of my friends do have a job.
Yeah, I don't think I know anyone that has a job, and we all take out a lot of loans.
Anything in the medical field is really expensive.
I know that I'll pay this back one day, and I never really went into medicine for the money in the first place. So to me, it's like, as long as I can live my life comfortably, if a lot of my income for a while has to go to my debt, then that's okay.
Yeah.
But the money side of things for me definitely is like, if I'm going to sacrifice this much of my youth. Like,
yes,
I'd like to be able to have
and mental energy.
a comfortable, like,
yeah.
I don't want to say adulthood. I guess I'm already an adult, but you know what I mean.
If what brings Scout joy is picking up a package from the package locker, and that's what gets her through her day of studying at her desk for 10 hours,
Yeah.
she deserves to get a package.
Yeah.
That's
If
a bold
walking
thing.
out of anatomy lab to go into the bathroom to buy these figs because my friend was wearing them is what brings me joy, then that's just what brings me joy.
Sometimes that's self-care. Do you both get white coat ceremonies? Scout just had hers.
I just had mine a year late.
I'm supposed to have one, but my school doesn't do it. But all of my other friends at nursing schools across the country do have white coat ceremonies.
No shame.
Isn't it supposed to signal like the entry to the clinical? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like before you go into clinicals, you get your white coat. What are typical misconceptions about med school versus nursing school?
I think that sometimes medical students think that they're the only people that know anything. Like, that just doesn't make any sense, first of all. But I think that having you here when we're like studying together, I realize just how much she knows and just how much she's being taught. It really does like kind of go against that stereotype of like, oh, you just like, you hear these stories all the time of like, oh, this nurse like disobeyed this doctor and then the patient almost died. Like, that happened. And I'm like, okay, but I sometimes think we just get a skewed image of it.
Yeah.
I don't like the misconception of nursing as like, oh, they just give meds and like change bedpans, because that's not what it is. And I think a lot of doctors could use to be a bit more grateful for the things that nurses do.
One thing that I see a lot in the hospital and hear a lot about is the nurses are just so annoyed with the medical students, and they think that they have this like entitled attitude that they know it all. But something that I see is how difficult it is mentally to go through medical school and to instill confidence in your patients. You kind of have to walk into this room, and even though you know you don't know everything, you kind of have to like act like that, because that's kind of what being a leader is. I don't think nurses really understand that it's not like cockiness, entitlement. It's kind of like a mechanism of survival, maybe.
Yeah. Everyone could use to like lean on each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I personally have absolutely no problem like parking myself in the corner with the nurse in the OR and being like, I'm just gonna hang out with you because you're like nice. And like, I don't know. I feel like if everyone was just more willing to be like, hey, like, can you help me?
Yeah.
And like, I have this question and what are you thinking? We would all benefit from it. And I think we're moving more in that direction and like trying to get away from stereotypes.
Yeah, and I think you guys really do carry this like huge stress of having to basically perform.
Yes.
To impress the people who are constantly evaluating you.
Yes.
And you're never gonna feel good enough. It's like the imposter syndrome. I think it's bad in nursing. It's probably so much worse in medical school.
That is a good question that I have about comparison between the
Okay.
two. What is your evaluation in clinicals like?
Okay, that's a really good question. Because our clinical instructor isn't always with us on site, at least for our senior practicum, I'm going to speak on behalf of that because I'm just paired with a nurse. We have these things called like CEIs, and it's clinical evaluation instruments, so we basically are typing in our own accolades of what we've done to meet this criteria. But then there are certain goals, like for the senior practicum, it's a little bit more serious where you sit down with your preceptor and they evaluate you, because obviously they see you more on an everyday basis. In a school setting, we have checkoffs. So if you're, going to do a straight cath or before you give meds, that's when you have like the real deal evaluation. You're being scored, and if you don't get like above a 90, then you fail and you can't move on until you retake it.
Yeah.
So you're not like allowed to pass meds until you get 100% on your dosage calc exam and you have been checked off. And so there are kind of like steps for your skills.
Yeah.
But on the floor, I don't know.
Ours are just called WBAs, which I think are similar to your CEIs. Workplace-based assessment. Your preceptor or whoever you're working with has to fill it out. So they like choose which competency you worked on. So mine, like, I have a bunch for working as a part of a team. Documentation, if I'm like, I was a scribe, I can write the note. Things like that. Or doing a history and physical. One thing that I will definitely say is that in nursing school, like, you guys have your skills, and I feel like you get really well prepared for those skills. That is not something that you get in medical school at all. You have your physical exam, and I'd say that that's like the biggest skill you're trying to learn is the physical exam for the whole body. Even that is not like super hammered in. No one's gonna be like, okay, go in this room and give this person a cardiac exam or a neuro exam, and then we're going to grade you on how you did.
Yeah.
I see fake patients and I do the exams, but they don't know. As long as I put my stethoscope on their chest, like, they think that I did it. So that's something I wish that we had more of.
Is it really different? Because I feel like in nursing school, there's a lot of, this is not what you do in real life. Like, here's all of the exams that you could do in your H&P. Then you can do whatever you want, because in real life, you're doing a 3-minute head to toe.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. There's a lot of things like, oh, here's this like special test for, I don't know, appendicitis. But you're probably not actually going to do that. And blah, blah, blah. Like, people say you shouldn't do this one. There's a lot of that.
This is how you textbook do it versus this is how you real life do it. This is a really good question. The application process.
Applying to medical school, you're doing it through one system at first. You choose all your schools, you write all your stuff, you write your personal statement, all of your like activities descriptions, enter your transcript, and then you pay, you know,
lots of money,
$1,000+ to submit that to your schools. I applied to 25, and then after you do that, you wait a while, and then schools get your application, and then they all send you secondaries because they want your $100 to $200. And so then you pay that per school and submit more essays, and then after that you can do interviews.
It's an emotionally draining process.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you? What was that time frame?
So I took the MCAT September 6th, 2019. I found out about the first school in November of 2020. I started school August of 2021.
So my time frame was a lot shorter. Some schools in nursing require the TEAS test or HESI exam. My school didn't, so I applied in fall of 2020. I found out I got in May 2021 and I started June 2021. So much shorter time frame and much less expensive. I applied to 4 schools and I paid probably around $400, maybe a little less, probably like $325.
So my total cost of application for 25 schools ended up being close to $5,000. Wow. It's a long process.
And you can't be maybe as well, it really worked out for you because you got into your dream school, but wouldn't you say like a typical candidate can't be as choosy about which school or where you want to be? Well, for me, I was like ridiculously choosy and only applied to 2 states because I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, no, I applied all over the country.
How many hours a day do nursing students study versus medical students? This is gonna be the shocker here.
I typically try to study from when I wake up until like 10 p.m.
And I maybe study on just an average day, 2 hours a day. If I'm if I have a project, that's different.
Yeah.
Like if I have a busy week, then that probably goes up to like maybe 6-7 hours.
Quick note, I don't study on the weekends at all.
Yeah,
Saturday,
and I do.
Sunday, yeah.
And because I have a busy schedule, people are like, oh, give yourself a day off where you just don't do nursing school. There's not really a day in the week that I don't do nursing school. Like I'm always kind of working on something. So I just spread it out over many days.
Yeah.
I don't study much. For a test, I'd be studying like, still I wouldn't study 10 hours. Except for if I'm really cramming. I probably would study like 7-ish.
I'd say my general structure is Monday through Thursday, 10 hours a day at least, with some breaks in there. On Saturday, I don't do any school. On Friday, after I finish my tests, I do not do school after that. And then on Sunday, I do all my assignments for the week, but it's usually just like
assignments.
Yeah, it's
that
usually
mindless. Varies a lot because I get a ton of assignments. And it's really busy work stuff, and you like don't.
No.
Like I'm literally watching Contagion right now to go write a discussion board post, and I do a lot of busy work.
I think if they tried to make us watch a movie to write a discussion post, everyone's discussion post would be like, I'm not watching that movie.
So that is what drives me nuts about nursing school is some of the things I'm just like, why? Like this is not drilling in the information how it should be.
All of our assignments are weekly, so it's always the same. I always have to do like a clinical skills assignment before. It's very quick. I always have to do this like informatics assignment, which like helps you get acquainted with Epic. Other than that, we have like pre-quizzes that come up more variably, but that's pretty much it.
But everything helps you with your learning. Where I feel like a lot of the stuff I do does not supplement my learning whatsoever.
I'd say maybe they don't help me with my learning, but they take 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. And my assignments can take like a long time, and then they'll have ridiculous requirements where for our discussion board posts, like you have to do 2 replies on different days.
Yeah, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Stupid stuff like that drives me nuts about my school. And maybe that's my program in particular that I'm not a huge fan of anyway. Yeah. No teenage days.
Whoa! The truth comes out.
Are you both happy with your path that you decided to take? I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
There have been hard times. I tell people that are in my life that are about to start medical school that it is a constant battle of trying not to become depressed. Really have to be very, very cognizant of your mental health. So there was a few month period where I was definitely depressed and I just didn't even realize, because you get so in the like flow of doing the things you have to do that you don't even realize you're not happy. So there has been some of that, but overall I am happy, and I think I just have to remember that I am very directly on the path I have to be to do what I want to do.
You have to kind of be really comfortable with your decision. And I think something that's really important to consider is that if you are thinking, oh, I'm really stuck in between deciding nursing school, med school, what's for me? If you're not all in for med school, it may not be the choice for you, you know? And that's what happened to me. I knew I wasn't all in. So I was like, what else can I do to be involved in the medical field, because I'm passionate about it, but I'm just not fully committed.
A lot of applying to medical school is answering the question of, why do you want to be a doctor? Can you show us that you really mean it? If you can't answer those questions, they will see through it.
That's another really good point with nursing too, is your part of your application and your essay is really, when they read it, they want to see, do you know what nursing is?
Yes.
Like, do you know what nursing really is? So something that helped me figure that out was, one, becoming a CNA. That's the best thing I could do. If you're at all interested in the nursing world, yes, it's not a super glamorous job, but you do work really closely with nursing, and as a nurse, you need to understand those skills anyway, so it goes hand in hand. It's like the core of your education journey. And then the other thing is reading books written by nurses about life and nursing, because you really need to understand the role and what's going to make you happy day to day.
I think that that's huge for any medical profession that you want to go into.
Don't you think that was like, I think scribing matches up so well with becoming a doctor. We're going to answer a couple more questions. How do you meet a significant other while dedicated to school? I get worried about this.
Don't ask us. We don't know.
Well, no, that's not true. We don't know, but we still have been trying to put an effort to date. Are there a lot of relationships in medical school?
We have 7 inner class couples.
We have probably more like 3 or 4, but your class is bigger. So actually a similar amount. Like, people definitely are coupling up in school. You definitely meet people that way.
It's tough because I felt like for me, the couples happened so fast. People just became couples, and then that was kind of it. If you're going into medical school and you are like, I need to meet my medical school significant other.
That's an orientation focus.
Yeah, it is. Like, you need to have looked at the Facebook group. You need to be ready. You need to be like, who am I finding in this crowd? The beginning of medical school is like a big party. Who am I trying to find at these parties?
This is the competitive part.
It is. Literally, this is the most competitive thing that happened. Medical school relationships move really fast. People move in together really fast. People fall in love really fast.
Oh my gosh.
It's just kind of the name of the game. Like, you're going through so much together, I guess you're really dive in. You are trauma bonded.
Scout and I are free to double date.
Yes.
What is something you wish you knew before starting nursing or medical school? I think I wish I knew how doable it is. Any degree you get that's difficult, people love to complain about it. It's kind of a coping mechanism, but you have to be able to like weed out the, oh, this is funny that we're relating on this terrible thing we have to go through, versus what's realistic. Because I kind of thought nursing school was gonna like totally ruin my life and I would be locked inside and never be able to do anything fun, but that's not true. I can do a lot of things that are still important to me. So I wish I could tell myself like, it's gonna be okay.
So the funny thing is, mine is the opposite. I wish I knew how hard it was. I knew it was gonna be hard, and I knew that I would struggle, but I didn't think it would be as hard as it is. And so I kind of wish that someone had been like, I know that you know it will be hard, but where you're at, it's gonna be up here.
But like, would that have actually helped you?
No, I would have been too scared.
Yeah, so it's fine.
I was not prepared. The first week was one of the most overwhelming weeks of my life because I was just like floundering and like, what do I do? How do I even like find my footing? I don't know how to study. I thought I knew how to study. Like, it was just a lot. It was really overwhelming. And I think that's kind of part of what made me a little bit depressed in those first few months. I thought the classroom was where I was gonna be okay, and it's so hard.
Both of us were pretty fresh off of our degrees, so we didn't have a lot of time gap from being away from the classroom. So I think that's where like maybe some of the confidence came from, but of course it's a different structure for you. But for me, it was like a fairly similar structure, and I had gone through really difficult classes before, so I already had that confidence of like, I know I'll get through this. Where if I was getting my nursing degree as my first undergrad in 4 years, and I was also fairly young, I think that I would have a much more difficult time, because it's just emotionally draining and hard to compare yourself to other people who their life looks very different than your nursing school undergrad life. I'm only happy with it because I already had the normal college experience.
That's true. I think about that a lot as well. I think a lot of pre-med people put themselves in a box of, I need to do all of these things to get to medical school, and these things I need to sacrifice my happiness for. You do not have happiness to sacrifice pre-medical
Yes.
school. You need to be as happy as you are, as you can be. You need to be doing all the things you can possibly do, traveling, doing anything you want to do, because it becomes so much harder. I feel like I have every weekend booked for like the rest of my life, because that's the only time I have. I try really, really, really hard to be a good friend and a good family member.
And she is amazing at it.
But it's so hard. If you're someone who has a lot of friends, like, just know you're going to be spending a lot of your time trying to nurture those friendships. So you may as well spend a lot of time with your friends before medical school. Don't sacrifice your friendships.
And this is why Scout and I are such good friends, because I feel like we really get each other's lives. This is a question that I came up with that I feel like we should talk about, is how to be a good friend to someone who is in PA school, nursing school, med school.
I just think being understanding. Very early on, I kind of made that rule for myself of nothing Monday through Thursday, unless it's like, I don't know, a Harry Styles concert, then I'll go. But I think just being willing to take no for an answer and not pressing. I understand that people like want to see you and they want you to have fun, but when you say no and somebody's like, come on, like, I know you can make it happen, like, just do it, it just makes you feel like, okay, now I have to be like a jerk and like really turn you down.
I feel like still texting people, not just like, oh, Scout's in medical school, she can't do it, providing ways that are convenient to her to get out of the house. Like the other day, I was like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood, want to go for a walk in your 10-minute break with Pumpkin? It can be a little thing, but it breaks up your day and makes it better. So I love when people like reach out to me to offer to do something, and I'll just be honest, and they're not going to be mad either way. The other thing that means a lot to me is getting texts of people like, good luck on tests and first days, and
she's really good at sending those.
So are you. Celebrating our little wins and having someone to call and be like, I did this today, that's really fun. I've been trying to like send Scout more Snapchats so you can open them on your own time without like having to take up the time to FaceTime, so you can open them on your study break.
Building off of what you said, still inviting them to things.
Still inviting them. Yes.
Like, just because I've said no a billion times, like, don't just stop inviting me to things. Like, there will be times I can say yes.
Best advice to other women pursuing careers in health. I feel like you have to answer this because my career is female dominated.
Especially if you're applying to medical school and you're going through interviews. This is just what it starts. This will continue throughout your entire journey in medical school, but like, start early of just asking women, how have you navigated your career as a woman, and try to gain an understanding of, obviously, like, people that are generations older, they will have been through some things that I might not go through. They have a really valuable perspective of how to navigate the field. And I think that as you connect with physicians that are women, you will see the ways that they carry themselves and the strengths that they bring to the table, the way that they kind of navigate around the misogyny that we see. I don't know how other schools work, but if you're in a position where you're getting a preceptor or you're being assigned a mentor, you're trying to find a mentor, be willing to say, I want to work with a woman, because usually they are accommodating of that. I have a Latina friend who said, I want to work with a Latina woman doctor because I've never even met one. And she was assigned one, and she was like, it was one of the most like impactful experiences of my life. So sometimes to like get those mentors that you want and to see the things that you want, you have to ask for them.
This is our final question because I think it's a really good one. If you're comfortable, share some of your failures and how you got back up from them.
Okay, I failed a test. I failed a final. I got a full-blown F on a mock board exam that was a final, and I had to redo it, and it was my birthday. It was one of the most confidence-rattling things that I have ever been through. I was just like, what happened? What is wrong with me? How did I fail this test that everyone says is easy? I'm still working through it. Every time I take that particular test in finals, I get really scared. Like, what if it happens again? What if I fail again? I don't want to go through that. But I think that the biggest thing is just knowing that like the world keeps on turning, the days keep moving, and the only thing that you can do is just keep doing your best to be prepared. Not trusting the part of yourself that tells you that you're dumb.
I love that. I think my biggest failure, like the one that affected me the most, was failing a part of my skills exam for my CNA license. That almost crushed me. Like I thought, okay, if I can't even pass this simple test, that rattled me. Like if I couldn't pass my CNA exam, I thought I was not meant to be a nurse at all. Really embarrassed about it. I have tons of videos on my YouTube channel all about it with lots of tears if you want to watch some relatable content. And it's so funny looking back on that now because it truly made me who I am today. I think it's also preparing my mindset going into the NCLEX, knowing how important it is for me to hopefully pass on the first time. But even if I don't, it doesn't define me. Like I can still bounce back from it. So that bounce back was really important, and let me tell you, I'm really good at my eyes and O's right now. And I let myself be sad. I think it's good to let yourself have some crying moments occasionally. Yeah, you kind of have to like feel it and process it, and hopefully have good people around you that remind you that you can do it. And the hard thing for me is because we take so many tests throughout the semester is the fluctuation of grades. I have to constantly remind myself that every test is not going to be your best test. So at one point in the term, it's gonna be a win for you. And the other ones are just not gonna be as good, but you still passed, you still did fine.
So when she had her failure, she put it on YouTube, she did her whole thing. And when I had my failure, I did like announce it to my class basically, because we have remediation support. So just support for if you have to retake tests and if like people want to offer help. And I personally like kind of wanted to normalize failure and like make sure that people knew that it was okay and we were all going through it. And I think that actually telling people and saying like I failed and that's okay and I need help is also like one of the biggest things that you could do.
Totally.
And I just had so many people reaching out like, hey, I failed an exam last block, but I just didn't tell anyone.
Right.
And so you realize more people are failing than you thought, but they're just not saying anything. So I think normalization of failure, and if you can handle being someone that's normalizing failure, you should
do it
because it helps other people.
We're all human, and it makes you a better nurse, doctor, because having humility is critical in this profession. We want to thank Scout so much for being a special guest today. This was so great.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I've been begging Kiara to make this video for a year, so I'm glad we're here.
Please give this video a thumbs up if you got something out of it. For today's question of the day, there's so many things you guys could chat about in the comments. If you are going into the medical field, comment a little bit of your story, why you chose what you did. Maybe it'll help someone else. In the spirit of acknowledging our failures, comment a failure and how you overcame it. Scout and I will try to like reply to some of them. You want to reply to some comments?
Oh, I'll reply
if you
to
have
some
any
comments.
time.
Oh, I will.
If you get a reply from Scout, you know you're special.
Yes.
She took the time to reply.
I just want to say, believe in yourself. I know it's really hard and we can be knocked down often. We're all meant to be where we're trying to go. Yes. You'll get there.
We love you guys. Cheers. Say goodbye, Pumpkin.
Oh, we didn't even get Lulu in here.
Come here.
Bring the animals. Bye.
I only worry that I'm crazy, 'cause if it's all true, well, it's all true. I mean, you know I ain't lying, 'cause I hate wasting time. You said